All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, February 8th, 2021. And I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a technology teacher as well as a Google certified trainer and educator and a gold product expert for the Google for Education team. And today I'm so happy to have on my show Miss Sarah Kiefer from Ohio.
Hello. I'm glad to be back. Round number two.
Round number two. We're gonna get you past Jake. No, we're gonna.
I know that's what, when he said 3, I was like, oh, I gotta go.
So Sarah comes to us from Ohio. She is a Google certified educator, trainer, and innovator. She is a technology integration specialist for the Ross Local School District for the past 4 years. But she was teaching in the classroom for 14 years before that. So welcome to the show again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you have a lot of cool stuff that you do. So why don't you share with everyone?
Thank you, Kim. Like Kim said, I'm all in on Google, everything, love it. I also am a mom. I have 3 girls who are a big source of inspiration for a lot of the different activities or the ways that I think about doing technology in the classroom. Just seeing that the home side of it, especially now that we've all been living this pandemic, kind of really colors it a little bit differently. And like Kim said, I have 14 years in the classroom. Prior to my technology integration specialist, actually all 18 of those years that you're talking is all in the same district. And so I'm a Ross Ram. We don't live there, but I am a Ross Ram just because I've been there, for almost half of my life now. And you can see behind me, I do a blog. I try to publish on Sundays, techyoucando.com. I'd love it if you would check it out, subscribe. That way you get the emails regularly. And on that blog, I have a very firm belief that technology is something that you can do. And tonight I want to demo how Google Sheets, which is an area that I see and talk to with teachers that's kind of an intimidating one, or they go, well, it's a spreadsheet and I have to do data or charts, and that's not really like for social studies, which was my content area in the classroom. It's not really something that Sheets doesn't apply or whatever. But tonight I'm going to show you how Sheets absolutely can, and hopefully give you a little bit different of a perspective. On a day-to-day basis, I work with pre-K to 4, but my classroom experience, I was at the middle school level, so I had to make a huge mind shift down. And I absolutely love it. I love the teachers I work with. I love the admins that I work with. I love just about everything, except for currently February, for me, is the worst month weather-wise here in Ohio. It's just real gloomy and dreary, and I don't care for it. So I'm really excited that this is like a little highlight of the week, of the month. So thanks for having me, Kim.
Well, we'll get through February together.
We will.
We were just talking about that before. We're gonna get a lot of snow here in South Jersey this week too. So, I'm not a fan of the winter time and the cold weather. So I'm just looking forward to the spring. So yeah. We'll have a spring drink after February's over.
When the sun decides to come back out.
There you go. So I'm so glad that you're going to be talking about Google Sheets, because I totally agree with you. I really feel Google Sheets is a weak area, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think that, teachers tend to shy away from it because either they don't know enough about it, or they just feel uncomfortable with it. Whatever the reason is, that trickles down to the students, and that doesn't expose them to the skills that they need for, spreadsheets and analyzing data and creating graphs, because that's a specific skill that they definitely need. And if we're not using Google Sheets in the classroom, we're really not helping our students. So I'm glad that you're going to be talking about Sheets and maybe give some people an insight and inspiration on maybe having the guts to try it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, because I I know your Tech Can Do blog is really great, and it gives a lot of quick, simple tips. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Google Sheets.
Thanks, Kim, because that's, I mean, really honest and truly, any of the Google applications, I think I mentioned this when I was here about slides. If you just take it at face value, you're missing out on so much of the power, on so much of the creativity aspect that can come with any of the Google tools that are there. And Google Sheets is one where, yeah, it is a spreadsheet. And yeah, spreadsheets can be really dry. Spreadsheets can be really, really powerful. I listened to your podcast last summer on one of my walks, and I want to say it was Wanda Terrell, and she was talking about Data Studio.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to be intimidated, let's talk Data Studio stuff, right? Like I had heard about it, I'd thought about it. And when she was like, yeah, and you use Google Sheets to do all of this kind of stuff. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like I understand Google Sheets. And, you know, when you make those connections, it really does, like what you're saying, it empowers you. And if we as teachers aren't working to empower our students or stepping a little bit outside of our own comfort zones and bringing our students with us, we could be doing better for them and for ourselves. And Google Sheets, I think, is another perfect example. Last time I was here, I shared 5 sweet slide tips, and today I've got some sweet sheets to share. So I know Kim put the link in the
chat.
Yep, in the chat, and it'll be in the show notes. And you're welcome to make a copy of it. And it does give you quick access to some activities that are already pre-built. So in what I would like to share tonight, and Kim, if I may, can I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Oops, I don't think I share. All right, how's that, Kim?
Okay, so I see your presentation.
Okay, so first thing I want to point out, and I'm glad that you said that, is I created the entire presentation that I'm sharing tonight in a Google Sheet. So I know that Google Sheets being a spreadsheet, you would never normally think of it that way. But that's kind of the cool thing is, I mean, Google Sheets, it's just like multiple slides. If you think about it, I use the tabs down here at the bottom for that purpose.
I see that. That's really innovative. Wow, I'm impressed, Sarah.
And I don't know if you can see way down below, maybe if I pull my screen up a tad. I don't know if I can do that on the fly here. But do you see that I have colors on the tab, on each of the tabs?
No, I don't. Even on my screen, I don't see the colors.
I'm trying to get there, Kim. I really am. It just keeps showing my dock.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do you see the tabs down here?
I don't see them.
Oh, at the very, very bottom, I do have colors on each of the tabs because that's something else that you can do as like a little visual, but they all match. So the tab that has the basics has this real dark green. The table of contents, the starting here, has the super almost like black green. And you notice that it's an ombre, and I picked green just like I'm wearing today because I like to theme things. So when you see this, you're like, oh, green, it's cheap. Okay. So just little.
Funny, Sarah.
What?
I said you're funny.
It's little things like that make me happy. So I just run with it. I embrace it, and I'm fine to acknowledge that I've got my quirks. But this, like, you look at this and you go, well, hey, I didn't know you could insert. Yep, insert an image. That actually is a Google slide that I created, downloaded as an image, and embedded it right here on my spreadsheet. So, like, as I go through this, I just want to kind of point out some of those little things that I've discovered or that I've tried and I feel kind of works. And if you notice, it does feel a lot like a presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I have it open on another tab on my workstation, and it really does. Like, it 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 doesn't look like a spreadsheet when you present it, when you preview it. It definitely looks like a presentation, which is awesome, but I want to know how you did it. So go ahead. I can't wait to hear all of your little tidbits here.
So, I mean, just the creation, the foundation of it. A spreadsheet has columns, the A, B, C, D. Notice that I only have those 5. I simply deleted all of the rest of them. You could leave them. If I had in, 100 more columns to the right, it's not going to negatively impact my presentation, but there's not a purpose in them being there. So I just deleted them.
Did you use an add-on?
No, it's built in. So here, let me just add in. So column E, let's say I wanted to bring some back. So I selected column E, and then I'm going to go to insert column right. You could always do the right clicking and everything too. You insert a column over here, and let's just make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to take the color out because that's how I made the border, right? I just filled all of those cells with a color. So then if I do this, now I'm doing the right click. I'm doing the 2-finger tap on my trackpad, insert right. And then something that I've found is really helpful, if you know that you're going to insert a whole lot more, if you select more columns and then do your right click, you see how it allows me to add in 2 because I've selected 2. So I can double the amount that I've selected.
Yeah.
And here I'm just adding in columns because, again, that's what a spreadsheet is. It's columns and rows. But then you're going back to your question, Kim, was, well, how do you get rid of them? The reverse process of it. I don't want any of these 4 columns, so I'm going to select them. I'm going to do my 2-finger tap, which is your right click, or go back to this case, you would go to edit and say, I just want to delete those columns. And then they're gone.
When you deleted the columns to the right of E, see, I used an add-on to delete them. I would have used crop. Do you know about that add-on crop sheet? I think it's called.
Yeah. I have not.
You'll have to check that one out. I'll put it in the notes, or I'll put it in the chat. So what that does is it'll crop the entire sheet up until it sees data.
Oh.
So let me find it.
Well,
it's actually called crop sheet.
Will it read color as data too, like how I have it ordered?
Well, you can crop to data, or you can crop to selection.
Gotcha.
So 2 options. So I'll put that in the comments too. Maybe you can use that next time.
Yeah.
That's why, because that's a lot of work to delete all those columns.
I mean, not really. Like, I click on the one and I just hold my arrow key until it goes all the way down. I don't do them like one at a time.
Yeah.
So like you can do things a little bit faster, and just repeat it down here at the bottom under here for the rows. Select them, delete them. Now for that one, because you do have to scroll because it comes generically with so many rows, probably your add-on would save a little bit of time that way for sure.
Yeah, I would just, definitely does. I would, because you can do to the sheet, to the selection, or to the data.
Yeah.
So let me put this, I'm going to put this I'll put this in the private chat for you.
Oh, thank you.
And
I have to check it out.
Yeah, check it out. See, this is what it's all about, paying it forward. We all learn from each other. All right.
Yeah.
So
the next one. So making these tabs down here at the bottom is really simple. Down here, there's a plus sign. You can add the sheet. But right next to it is a little hidden gem that I myself was not aware of for a very long time. And then I think I accidentally just clicked on it. And it says all sheets. And I was like, what does that mean? So you click on it, and then it gives you a list of all of the sheets or all of the tabs in your workbook and your sheet here. And I found this to be really helpful. I was actually in a different workbook, different Google Sheets. I think I don't know, I had a bunch of tabs at the bottom, right? Like sometimes you just get those spreadsheets that they are very, very data heavy. And I was like, this is incredibly helpful to navigate to those end ones really fast.
Yeah, so you don't have to scroll, right?
Yeah, instead of clicking the shark tooth to the right, scrolling to the right, clicking on that all sheets right here. And I was like, man, that's genius. I'm glad somebody thought of that, because
Yeah, that is a good idea because it'll just take you right to that
yep.
work. Yeah.
Yep, whichever tab that you wanted to go to, you just click on it and boom, you're there. Which is also why I built this little table of contents over here, because it, as you notice, as I hover over them, there's a link that pops up, and it works just like hyperlinks on a Google slide or on a Google Doc. It shows up then, and you can click on this one. It will take you not out to a website in this particular case. It will take you to that particular tab. So it's that real quick navigation. And if you think about like in a Google Doc where you build out that table of contents, I personally built this table of contents where Google Docs has that unique ability to generate that for you based on what your headers are. But here it works the same. So if I want to jump right to pixel art, I just click on that and I can go to that tab. So being able to do that, and again, going back to how could you use this in the classroom, whether you're a math teacher, a science teacher, social studies, language arts, whatever you've built your sheet for, which I'll give you some ideas for that later. If you want to give the students quicker access, you can build in your little table of contents right here. Or if you have a sheet for each student, which is another way that you could potentially use Google Sheets, these could be each of the students' names. So then my maiden name was W, so I was always at the very, very end of everything. You know, I wouldn't have to scroll. I could just jump right to my name, even though I'm at the end. You know, it's just some of those little bit of quick workarounds that you can jump into that I think Sheets is really good for.
I really like that you did the table of contents there on the first sheet.
Yeah,
That's really it's really different, and that's something that really brings your attention to, you know. So how did you link the basics to the basics tab?
So what I had to do is first I had to create that tab, right? And in order to create a tab, because you can't link to something that's not there yet. So you create a sheet. So I've got sheet 9 here. And I could come up here and I would grab this URL, because if you notice and you pay attention, each URL does change slightly. Like it's not a ginormous change. I think we're talking like the ends here. So if you come back here to start here, and let's say we want to add in, let me insert another column. Shouldn't have taken them out, should I? So let's just say I wanted to link this to sheet 9. Of course, it's white text, so I got to change it back. Come on. So sheet 9. So what I would do is you can do a right click, you know, the 2-finger tap, go to insert, find your little chain link. There's like 5 different ways that you can insert a link. Here's a link option here. And then just like if you're familiar with linking to different slides in a Google slide, it will allow you to link to sheets in this spreadsheet. So then it's a matter of coming down, remembering like, oh, I want to link this phrase to this sheet. And then you say apply, and it's done.
That's it. Quick and easy.
Yep. Now you notice like it changed the hyperlink color. If you want to, you can come back, change your text color. You know, don't get married into the hyperlink color. You can always make it fit your presentation too, which is another thing I think across all of the Google applications that I've really kind of come to embrace. I love the idea that blue hyperlinks are what most people do think of and recognize. But in this case, those blue hyperlinks don't work out so good on these green colors. So I wanted to make those a little bit different.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you showed how to link to a tab or a worksheet in a spreadsheet, because it's another hidden feature that people may not know about, because people think that you have to go to a website or a video or something like that. So this
Right.
is another way of showing how you can use sheets.
Right. And another thing that I think people get a little tied into is the size and the shape of each individual cell. So I inserted my picture and I wanted that picture to be of a larger size, right? So that it's eye-catching. But I didn't want these to be wimpy little small cells. So, doing a little bit of math here, I figured out how large I wanted my picture here to be that I had created in Google Slides and downloaded it and brought over. So if you notice, this cell for sheet 9 is much larger, or is much smaller than the basics or pixel art or flippity. But if you just look straight across, you notice it's just 2 of those cells, and you say, well, Sarah, how do you make that happen? I can't make one cell giant without doing that to the whole row. You are married in on that. But what I do all the time, and I don't know, it's kind of an obsession of mine at this point, I think, is I just select that cell and the one below it. So you can see I've picked 2 cells and I merge them together. And you can do this either, height-wise, or you can do it width-wise, depending on how you need things to flow. And it's this little merge cell option here. Again, 2 fingers, right-click. The merge is down. I think it's towards the bottom. Maybe somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe the unmerge is there. And I click merge cell, and it literally just chunks the 2 of them together. And you can see now sheet 9 is the same height as the basics. So I love doing that. You can merge many cells together. It could be, as many as you wanted. And it's a matter of just clicking on that. The only caution I have with this is you will lose anything that's down here. It will only save anything that you've typed or inserted or put into this top cell. So just be cautious of when you do that. You can always undo, your mistakes when you make them. And that's how we learn. I mean, I've done that, I don't know how many times, and undo it, fix it, and come back.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you merge cells, it gives it a whole different look, like it doesn't look like the standard sheet when you start merging and then you start formatting your cells and fill them and things like that. It starts to look like a customized spreadsheet at that point.
Yeah, it doesn't look so dry. And I think you lose a little of that intimidation factor when you say, I am making this sheet. I'm going to make it work for me and not feel super constrained with, oh, my columns all have to be this big and my rows all have to be this big. I can make them whatever I want, right? That's the beauty of any of these Google tools is the only constraints that we put on them most of the time are the ones that we have in our own brains, rather than, oh yeah, you just absolutely can't do that. So
yeah, and I'm glad that you showed that, and then like the formatting, even the formatting of the text, like you can change the font, the font size, the color, like all that stuff. You don't have to use the default font
right.
in any Google application. You can change it. So you can see Sarah definitely has a different font in there than Arial, and she's using different sizes as well. So keep that in mind too when you're customizing your sheet.
Right. 100%. And I'm going to jump into this first tab, the basics, and you can navigate through clicking on the tabs down at the bottom. Or if you say, hey, I have the copy of it, I'm just going to go to the basics. You can go that way too. And what I did here was something that teachers need all the time, regardless of your content area. It's more or less a place for vocabulary. And once you get used to and you get really accustomed to Google, you notice that a lot of the vocabulary carries through, but there is some very specific and unique vocabulary to all of and each of the different Google tools, and Sheets is no different. So the toolbars are something I cannot tell people enough. Understand the toolbars, understand what to click on, understand how they change versus, depending on what it is that you're clicking on or doing or having something in there. And I built in some tips, and this is why I love that you put the copy of it in the show notes and on the YouTube and the comments, that you're welcome to make a copy of this and use it or just reference it. I tried to break out a lot of the vocabulary, and this is where my hope is that if teachers become a little bit more comfortable with this, you're welcome to share this with students. I've used Sheets with students as young as 3rd grade, so they just eat it up, and they don't know what they don't know, so they don't know to be intimidated by it. It's us as teachers that are the ones that are intimidated. So using this vocabulary, and I think if you understand the vocabulary, and I did try to insert some links that you can maybe go out and learn a little bit more than what I tucked in on here. But you can see that I've got quite a bit of vocabulary and some suggestions and like what, you can refer to these as and help yourself as well as your students when you start to jump into and work with Sheets.
Yeah, this is a great reference, really for the beginner, because it really gives a breakdown of what it is. And I like that you even inserted a little snippet of the tool that you reference it to. So this is a really nice reference to the basics of, getting started with Google Sheets.
Thank you.
This is nice, Sarah. I'm going to use this.
You are welcome to.
Thank you.
This is a thing that I really thought about when I created this presentation. People are intimidated because they're not used to using it. And I thought, what better way to force them to use Google Sheets, but to create the presentation in Google Sheets? Because then by default, you have to be in Google Sheets. And then once you're there, you find that it's not such a scary place to be.
Yeah, no, it's not. Now, did you use this? Did you share this with your staff at school?
I did a series of webinars last summer, and they have access to all of them. So yes, I mean, we have like a bank of PD that they can go to and learn from, and it's very self-selective. Like you can pick this or pick that and kind of do that kind of thing.
Did you get any feedback from the staff about using Sheets, or did they use it, or you didn't hear anything?
The teachers that did see this were very complimentary of it. I think with everything going, and I try to keep that in my mind, with everything that is going on right now, it's okay that they're not like awing and oohing and going, oh, Sarah, this is like, that's okay. It's here if they want to use it. I try to be very respectful of that. I have had a lot of compliments on it, and teachers, when I've gone into their classrooms and we talk about Sheets and we, reference these kinds of things, it's helpful. It's very helpful.
This is really great. I mean, I can definitely use this in middle school because I teach a lesson in, when STEM was incorporated in the schedule. This year it's not. I was teaching the students Google Sheets, and we were doing a shopping spree, and we were making an online checkbook and keeping track of everything through Google Sheets. And I was going through the vocabulary and what a cell is and the column and the row, everything that you have in this basics tab. I was teaching the kids, and you'd be surprised. This was in 8th grade that they didn't really they didn't feel very comfortable or even confident with sheets. Like it was, they may have been exposed to it at some point or another, but it's not like automatic. You know what I mean? It's not like Google Docs or Microsoft Word where it's automatic.
Right.
So, that's the part that you want to get them proficient in. You want it to be automatic for them. And this would have been a great. I'm gonna use this. This is a great reference to helping the kids just be able to look up the information in here,
Right.
keep in sheets, and they can look for the information, and then they can go back into their sheet and make the change or whatnot. They don't have to go back out and surf the internet to find something and then come back. Like they're still focused on the task at hand.
Right. Exactly. And that's what that's the power of using the application to teach the application. Look what it can do. Like it's a vocabulary list, right? I could have easily done that on a doc. I could have easily done that in Google Slides. But it's about sheets. So I was very conscious of keeping that true to that.
Yeah, no, and even having the extra sheets or the tabs or the worksheets at the bottom available, I think that's even like new to a lot of people. I mean, students too, because they see one sheet and they're done. Like they don't realize like you can have multiple sheets in there. You can hide them. You can lock them down. Like so that's even something that people don't think of either, because you can have like your questions on one sheet and then hide the next sheet and have your answers on there, and you know the answer sheets there, but the kids don't know it, so the kids just see the questions, so you can really become creative with it.
Absolutely. And then when you take the 5 steps above that and you start using that hidden sheet to do like conditional formatting and other formulas, to where when the kids type in answers on the question sheet, pulling from your answer sheet that's hidden that they don't know is there, it can help you demonstrate the power of Google Sheets and give you just another opportunity, because what I see a lot is just pure exhaustion with the exact same tool over and over and over and over again. And we have the ability to provide multiple different tools and different views on things. And that's where we grow. That's where we see, the creativity spark. And some kids will look at this and they'll think, this is great because it's very linear and it's nice and clean. And I can, make all of the cells the same size and all that kind of thing. And then other kids will not really get this at first, but they truly get a Google Doc or a Google slide. Like, let's give our kids more of this choice and let them see that it doesn't, a word processing document doesn't have to just be Docs or Microsoft Word. Like you could do this if this is what works for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
You're good. Because again, you have to have the basics, right? You have to have that foundation, because once you do, everything else kind of, okay, I can do this. This is not so intimidating. I can come back and refer to this if I need to, like you're talking about, like with 8th graders. Mrs. Matina was talking about like inserting. I don't know. Well, come back here and it'll help you out. Even inserting these little help links. Some kids will need that extra boost. Yeah, some kids won't. Some teachers will. Some teachers won't. Keeping those kind of things in mind too. It's a great little way of demonstrating creativity within Google Sheets, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
And speaking of creativity, shall we jump into some of the activities that can be done with Google Sheets? All right. So if you have
along on my screen, because I can't see the like tab. It's too small for me to see it, so I'm looking at it on my big screen here.
If you look down here, any of these tabs, and you could pick one. And so Kim, you tell me if there's one that really jumps out at you and you say, oh, hey, like that's something that because we can go through any of them. We can go through all of them, or we can just go through a few.
I'm liking the pixel art.
Okay. So do you want to do pixel art or do you want to do pixelated book covers?
Do the book cover one.
Okay. So this is inspired truly by Eric Kurtz, who I know you're familiar with. And he had pushed out some pixel art ideas and blog a couple years back. And one of my teachers came to me and she said, Sarah, my kids really do love Minecraft and pixel art and all that kind of stuff. And she said, but I want them to like recreate a book cover. And so we talk back and forth. I love having those conversations with teachers. And that gave life to this pixelated book cover. So these kids were really taking these books that they had just read that they really enjoyed. And we made a Google Sheet, which you'll find the templates here. I wrote a blog about it. And then here's direct link to that actual template. So if I open that up, so if you have access to that spreadsheet that I shared as the link, you can come here and we can go to this. I'll go to the view only link. So again, it's a Google Sheet. I've embedded directions on here. I've got some options because we're talking, this was a third grade class. So we've got students that probably will want to stick to the basics, and then you have students that will be excited and they'll want to move forward. So I always like adding in some of these options. And one of the things that was important to the teacher was for students who had books that were portrait style versus the landscape style. So I said, oh, that's easy enough. I'll just make 2 tabs. So here's the directions for it. A very generic, simple preview. But what the students would do is they would come to the layout of their choice, and that's where you can kind of tie in some of that kind of language, portrait versus landscape, and what does your book look like? What do you want your book to look like? And then here again, I just embedded some directions. Now, if you notice, that doesn't look like it's in cells with columns and rows because it's not. What it actually is I brought in a Google drawing and I just typed up the directions. So it's one image, it's one box. And I put in the information that I needed to here. And then this just lives on this sheet and you can move it wherever you want. Obviously, students can then delete it, but they're going to be working over here on the main part of the screen. And they sat down and they created their book cover. The sizing of the cells is something to take into consideration. She didn't want them spending hours and hours and hours, so we kept the cells a little bit bigger. And if you were to come to here, I think I have a couple of, nope, wrong one. Sorry. I have a couple of examples that she let me share when I shared it out. These right here in the center of the screen were some of the results of their pixelated book covers. And these are third graders. So keep that in mind.
This is cool. I like this. Like, so how long did it take for them to do a book cover?
It depended on the student, right? Because some of them like dove in and they really, really loved it. I would say she gave them a couple of days, but a little bit of time every day. So some of the kids whizzed through them. Some of them would work on them at home. This was not meant to be like, this was a piece of their product, right? Like reading a book, your final product isn't just creating a book cover, right? They had to do other writing activities with it, but she wanted to give them this creative outlet. And I mean, this Dogman book, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great activity. Even like, I see a lot of students, they use graph paper,
Mm-hmm.
and then they start designing their icon or, image or whatever on graph paper. Like they can use Google Sheets as a graph paper. and
Right.
just do it.
And it's limitless, right? They
Yeah,
make mistakes like on a graph paper. If you color in the wrong box,
you gotta erase it, or hopefully you don't have to start again.
correct. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and the kids really, they loved it. They loved it. And it just kind of spirals, for them to think about sheets in a different way. I mean, they were not intimidated when you say, hey, we're doing pixel art. They were like, oh, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
I like this. This is a great template. I like the first. I lost it now. The first sheet with the menu on it, the presentation. I love that. I think it's very innovative, and people don't think of sheets this way, and it's a nice way to like put your own twist on it and to make it your own. So um, I really now let me ask you this one question. You said you put on the pixelated book cover, you had the directions and you inserted it as a Google drawing file,
Mhm.
and it's there. So what about all of those images that you had on your basics tab?
I did the same.
The same thing?
Well, it's not a Google drawing. I shouldn't say that. So you're talking about when I put in
I need to go back to
these
this again.
pictures, right?
Yeah, like you had like the little snippets of the menu bar. So
Yeah.
were they just you just inserted them as images?
Yep. I picked the cell that I wanted to put whatever in and insert. And I try to like coach people up like, okay, I want to insert, before I tell them where to go. Where do you think you will go? Look at the toolbar. So then they start making these connections. If I want to insert something, if I want to talk about data, if I need to edit spelling or links or number of columns, if you start talking in the lingo of that, which is not hard to do, I want to insert, and you have this option for image. You actually get two options, and there is a real difference. And if you're not conscious of it, you might get a little bit frustrated at first because you'll learn real quick. If you insert the image in the cell, your image can only be as big as your cell. So if I insert a square picture in this cell, it's only going to be that height. So keep that in mind. You'd have to make the entire cell bigger. So that means either making your column a lot wider or your row a lot taller.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I did with these guys. But notice that column is a nice wide column, and it's actually 2 rows thick.
2 rows. Right. So you merged it and then you inserted the image.
Now, the other one is what I did. Actually, I used a drawing, but you could do the same thing if you have it created somewhere. So like my presentation cover, I created in a Google slide. And what I did was I came here, you can insert an image over the cells. So that just means it's like free floating on top of, you could put it wherever you want. But then that also means it's not attached in the cells. And depending on your goal, right? That's what we have to go back to. What's the purpose of putting that image in there? Do you want it free floating, or is it necessary to have it so that it's not constrained by your cells and your rows, your columns and your rows?
Right. Like you said, it depends on the purpose, And honestly, the reason why I bring that up is because I think that's another thing that people don't think of when they think of sheets is
right.
Inserting images. Like you don't think about inserting images in sheets. You think about inserting numbers and headers and formatting your data, like either for money or different date formats or whatnot. But you don't think about inserting images, and that's why I bring that up, because I think that's something that you and I take for granted, but maybe
right.
for a beginner, they may not connect the dots there, So I'm glad that you took the time to explain that as well.
And it really does give a little bit of a better visual when you were talking about potentially using this with 8th graders. if you didn't have this here and you just said all things numbers, I can't imagine all of the different things that the kids could be thinking of, right? If you say tipping paint bucket, some of them probably would get it. Some of them, it would take them a while to actually find it. But if I'm giving them that picture, like, hey, I'm calling this a tipping paint bucket. Well, what do you mean, Mrs. Kiefer? Do you see the picture down here? It looks like a paint bucket that's tipping. Now find that. It's a little bit easier of them to find that association and to find it up here.
And
So,
I think it gives them a little bit of responsibility too. Like, hey, I'm giving you the resource. You're on your own. You can go figure it out. It's right here, and look for it. Geez, eighth graders can definitely do that. But even if you bring it down to elementary school and have them, they're like cross-referencing, really. Finding, identifying the icon, and then they're actually using it. So it's a skill. Like
yes.
you take that for granted, but it's still a skill, that the kids need and practice on. And I honestly, I really think this is a great reference. Like I said, I'm gonna use this in middle school. um, I do teach Google Sheets to seventh and eighth graders, and they don't know the vocabulary.
No.
They don't know. They definitely don't know the vocabulary. But after the first class, they at least they're exposed to it. They don't really know how to format the data and adjust the size of the cells and things like that. So, I think we really do need to help ourselves so that we can help the kids be more exposed to sheets. I think this is great, because eventually when they get into high school, right, what are they dealing with? Data, right?
Yeah, and this is where I really try to suggest this and encourage a lot of these activities that you look at down here on the tabs do feel pretty elementary. Number one, because that's where I'm at right now, and I love supporting them. But if you can get them in the tool and not worry about the technical pieces, which is what we get wrapped up in a lot of times, then when they actually do need it, like you're saying, in high school for data calculations and charts and graphs and all of that kind of stuff, it's not so intimidating, because they're like, oh yeah, I remember like putting in pictures or changing this. And it doesn't have to be just like that dry, bland data sheet, right? What people think of as a spreadsheet, because they have a different association. They have a different creativity piece to it. And for my elementary teachers, these kids shouldn't be crunching tons and tons and tons of data. Some data, sure, but let's get them creating and inspired and learning about the tool before we dump all of that other stuff and have that.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what? One last thing that I'd like to bring up too is that I found in teaching sheets is that when I'm in a sheet, I use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move from one cell to the next, or the enter key. The kids, they're using the mouse and they're clicking from one cell to the next cell. And I try to tell them, like, use the arrow keys. So that's even a whole different learning curve, because then they realize, like, okay, it is much easier to navigate the sheet with the arrow keys sometimes rather than with the mouse. Especially when you're entering data. Like when you're entering numbers, you can just you type your number and you hit the down arrow key, and it registers that number, and then it goes to the next cell. So like when I observed it in my class, like the kids were typing in the number and then they were taking the mouse and clicking to the cell below. So even that simple keystroke, it might sound very elementary, but it was something that they, as middle school kids, were learning at that time. So they were exposed to that too. So, it's all, we're all learning it together, but it's something that I found that the kids were definitely using the mouse. And I'm like, no, use the keyboard.
Well, and there are a lot of times where a mouse definitely is easier to use.
Oh yeah.
I've also, when I was talking to our kindergarten teachers, we recently just completely replaced our fleet of Chromebooks. So my kindergarten through fourth grade, since November, we all have brand new Chromebooks in the classroom. And our previous devices were fairly old, so a lot of the trackpads were less than stellar. So, the mouse was almost a necessity for the vast majority of these kids. But with these new ones, it's, hey, remember that the kids don't always have to default to that mouse. Like, they have brand new computers. Can we try out the trackpads? Because they're really nice, or showing them the arrow keys and make sure they understand clicking to the right and to the left, and up and down and all that, because it is a different way to experience things, and not just in sheets, but for little ones to be able to maneuver in a Google slide. A lot of times using those arrow keys is 8,000 times better than trying to, teach them, like, is it a right click? Is it a left click? Are you a lefty? And then you add on the whole other side of it.
Now there.
Yeah. So those little arrow keys, I think, I love them. I really do, because it's for me, it's very easy, and I don't carry a mouse on me. So
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It depends on what application I'm using, but when I'm in Sheets,
Mhm.
I'm mostly using the keyboard. Like,
Mhm.
if I need to go to the menu, then I'll click on the menu. But when I'm entering data and doing things with data, like, I'm moving around with the arrow keys, unless I have to click someplace that's a little further away than where I am. But yeah, definitely, like, that's just something else that it's just being exposed to that.
And a lot
So
of times it's the teachers making it okay and demoing that for the kids, that it's okay to use and that's why I let the kids use the mouse if they want to. I have no problem with that, but I think they also need to understand how to use a trackpad. How do you use the arrow keys? If you have a touchscreen computer, Chromebook, whatever, you have to teach them. They get this identity as these digital natives, and I'm like, they only know this because this is all we've ever given them, but they don't know what they don't know. So we have to teach them trackpad versus keys versus, touchscreen. So, us being conscious of that is half of the battle.
that's a whole nother show. Yeah, that's a whole nother show. I mean, we have adults that really have a hard time figuring out, like, how to maneuver that trackpad mouse. Yeah, just
I
yeah.
do this with kindergartners all the time. I'm like, are you right-handed or left-handed? Whichever hand they are, like, that is your power man. And then your other one, or that your non-dominant is your power, and your dominant is your mover. And we talk about how you press and hold, and then this one can move it all around. And when you frame it in the age appropriate thinking, they get it.
Yeah, you just have to, like, connect to them at their level, and then
Mm-hmm.
they get it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. Well, in middle school, you just tell them 2 fingers tap once, 2 fingers tap once. I do the peace sign, 2 fingers tap once on the Chromebook for right click.
Yep.
But yeah, just whatever it is, you just make it up and you connect with them, and that's it.
And make it fun. Like, I always like, it's like petting a little bunny rabbit. Like, when you don't want to, like, jab at the bunny. You have to be real nice, and you have to pet the bunny. 2 soft fingers, and, like, they get it. Like, I know it sounds so silly in my head, but I'm like, you know what? You don't jab at a bunny rabbit. You just nice and gently.
Hey, whatever it takes for them to know what to do and listen, hey, that's all that matters. So whatever you have to say, just keep
Right?
doing.
Because you want to build that up so that when they get up to you at 8th grade, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Good for you, Sarah. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so thankful that you came on today and shared all of your little tech bits about Google Sheets. And we had a really nice conversation on using other options in Sheets as well. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you being on today. I'm really thankful that you took the time to share. So I
Well, I'm
appreciate
happy to do
that.
so. I'm happy to do so.
So what I'm going to do really fast
Yeah,
is share my screen
sure.
and let me know if you can see my screen. All right, do you see my website?
I sure do. I
All
do.
right, I'm on the right screen then.
You're there.
All right, so if you'd like to visit my website, thesweettalk.com, it's the SUITE talk.com. On the homepage, you can find the latest episode. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter, check out my blog, The Tech Lady. The Sweet Talk is on Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you can also subscribe to my newsletter. You can also listen to Sarah on podcast as well. Um, Alice Keeler and I wrote a new book called Stepping Up to Google Classroom. It's for beginners. That's available on Amazon. If you'd like to support my mission and help me pay it forward and helping other educators around the world, you can become a sponsor. You can fill out the sponsor form, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you'd like to be a guest on my show, please fill out the guest inquiry form. Right now, I'm scheduling for May. So if you'd like to be a guest, please fill it out, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. The episode page usually takes a little bit of time to load because it is a Google Data Studio uh, report. This is my Google Data Studio report that brings in all of the episodes that I've done. So if you like to get caught up on any past episode, you can come here. The show notes and the YouTube link is here as well. My Jamboard page, you can check out my resources about Google Jamboard. If you have an idea that you want to share for Jamboard, you can certainly share it with me, and I will showcase your Jam in my Pay It Forward presentation. And you can share your idea here. And here is my Ideaboard for Jamboard resource as well. And I do have to say one thing that um, Alice Keeler and I, we just submitted our final or our first draft of our new book for using Jamboard in the classroom.
Nice.
I'm totally excited about that. So stay tuned for information on that coming out. Hopefully, I don't know when, but it'll be, sometime in the future. So I'm really excited about that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a really fun book to write.
I'll bet, because I know that Jamboard has really picked up a lot of users in these last handful of months, just with I think it's the simplicity is what really appeals to most people.
Yeah, keep it simple,
Mhm.
and that's what Jamboard does. So it was a lot of fun writing it. I learned a lot. We collaborated so much, and we had really great conversations on how to use it, and we go back and forth, and that's how we all learn from each other. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
a great experience, and it was a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for that sometime in the future. I don't know when, but it'll be soon. I'm sure.
That's
But
awesome.
anyway, sorry to get off topic. I was just excited about the Jamboard.
And you should be, like, you're the Jamboard expert lady, so you
Well,
should be excited.
I just I feel like like you said, like Jamboard's come a long way. More people are using it now. When I first was exposed to it back 3 years ago, I couldn't get one person to use it, and now it's really it's so popular now, and it's great because people are being really innovative and creative with it, and it's just another tool I have in your tool belt.
Yeah, I have a first grade teacher that started using it this year with her first graders. And she told me from the beginning, like they loved it. They were so excited that they could, collaborate. And that was really the thing that she was most excited about, was the collaboration piece. And she's been using that all year long with them.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's simple. That's what's key, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's wrap up the show.
Sure.
Until next time, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Follow Sarah on Twitter. She's Kiefer SJ, and I will have this episode up and running either tonight or tomorrow. So you can view it live. You can view the recording on YouTube, but the podcast and everything will be available later tonight or tomorrow. So thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Until next time, have a great evening. Stay warm, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
You stay on.
I will.
Don't hang up.